or the horseshoe, the, we're gonna have to try that out again. God damn it. Welcome everybody to the Cleveland Beamer Sim Sports channel. My name is Morgan, and this is my favorite time of year, where we get to kick off the 24-hour of Daytona. This, if you don't know, is a multi-class race which kicks off the season for IMSA, and is usually the first major event to happen on iRacing for the calendar year. You find me here at Daytona in the BMW
Right.
M4 GT3,
Right.
going on to the banking here with an LMP, actually no, that's an Lmdh going by. And this is another etiquette video. The goal of this video is to help you get a better understanding of the do's and don'ts when it comes to multi-class racing for an event like the 24-hour of Daytona. So we're starting in the GT3, and I'm just on my outlap now, but in the GT3s you have a key responsibility, and that is to maintain the racing line. So typically in multi-class racing, especially for the 24-hour Daytona, you will have multiple classes of cars. In the 24-hour Daytona's case, you will have the GT3s, the LMP2s, and the LMDHs. There is a substantial pace difference between the GT3 and the two prototype classes that are involved in this race. And because of this, there are very specific guidelines that you need to follow as a GT3 driver in this series. Following these guidelines is going to help you survive longer and hopefully get you to the end with as little impact and drama with other vehicles as possible. So again, your main responsibility as a GT3 driver, you need to maintain your racing line. The prototype cars, because they are dramatically faster in most places, can easily get around you. It's their job to be patient, but it's your job as a GT3 driver to maintain the racing line and be predictable. If you see a GT, or let's see a GT, if you see an LMP2 or an LMDH approaching, just stay predictable, don't do anything crazy, and go about your race. There are some opportunities throughout the lap where you could move aside and make life a little easier for those faster classes, and I will show you those in just a moment. But again, not to beat a dead horse, it is so important to maintain the racing line. When you're on the banking like I am now, this yellow line on the track, you really need to hug that until it's time for you to sit up for turn one. There we go, getting through here. Now, if I was approached by a prototype to go through here, what I would do, if I wanted to let them by, is take the wide line that I'm taking now. Doesn't cost me a lot. It allows them to go by. Here's a high-risk turn. You really want to let them by before going through the kink. Otherwise, there's not enough room for you to get through it. Now going through the second horseshoe.
Okay,
again, if they stick a nose on the inside, just go wide. Otherwise, maintain your line. Get to your line as quick as possible. If they make the dive,
Car
let
left.
them through.
Clear left. Car left. Clear left.
And away we go. Alright, so final thoughts here in the GT3. You gotta share the road. It's not just the GT3 class on the track. You still have the prototypes, but at the same time, it's not your job to constantly just let prototypes through. You are still running your race in the GTs, and you have the right to the racing line. So, be deliberate with your actions, be consistent, and most of all, be predictable. It's your racing line. You don't have to get off of it just because a faster class comes up to you. Throughout that 24-hour period, though, what's going to help everybody make it through it is to have consistent behavior. If you have an opportunity to let a prototype by and it won't impact your race, my advice, let them by. Trying to force the issue, force a pass, especially on somebody that is in a prototype that maybe is being a little erratic, maybe taking chances they shouldn't take, you don't want to fall victim to them. So the best thing you can do is get out of the way of the situation and let them by. So hopefully this helped some of the GT3 folks out. Now we're going to move on to the LMP2. Alright, now in the P2. Slightly different set of rules. P2, also known as the LMP2, is the first of the prototype class cars that will be in the 24-hour Daytona. As you could probably see, it is significantly faster than the GT3 cars. However, there are still some guidelines that ye old P2 drivers need to follow. LMP2 drivers and GT3 drivers sometimes don't get along because they often come together. One way to help avoid that stigma is to be patient. As an LMP2 driver, one of the best traits you can have to surviving 24 hours is to be patient. There's going to be a lot of times where you're going to get up to a pack of GT3 cars and you know it's going to cost you a ton of time, but you just got to wait. This spot's one where you just got to kind of wait, eventually go around the outside like this. You're going to catch them in the horseshoe, which is not as bad. You just stay tight if they let you to the inside, go around. Let's say we catch the GT3 car up here in the kink. If we can get by before the kink, yay. If not, you just kind of slow down and go around the outside. How about the second horseshoe? Well, sometimes you gotta go in a single file line behind them. Other times you can just tuck on the inside here. Continue on your way. How about onto the banking? Well, if you can't get by before the braking zone, I recommend just waiting, because it doesn't really cost that much time. But if you can get by before the braking zone, then more power to you. And here's the one where we run into the most issues, and that is the bus stop. If you can't get past a GT3 car before the bus stop, then it's your responsibility to slow your car down, get in line behind them and wait. Ideally, you can spot the situation before you get to the braking zone, so you can slow down earlier, create more of a gap, so you can get a better exit out of the bus stop versus rushing into the bus stop and then having to throw down the anchor to slow down, which completely kills your exit out of the bus stop as well as your lap time. So patience is a virtue. Unlike previous years here at Daytona and iRacing, there is another prototype class that you will also be racing with. It's the Lmdhs, conveniently right behind me. And they are faster, but not by much, only 3 seconds a lap. So places like that, they want by. You could be really nice, and you can lift like I did, just to let them by, or you could race it out. But 2 prototypes going too wide into the kink there, while it can be done, I don't advise it. So you have to not only be looking out for slower traffic, but now the P2s, the LMP2s, are slower traffic than the LMDHs. The infield, the LMDHs are definitely faster, but it's not dramatic. The biggest place where they're faster is right here going into the bus stop. They just have so much more downforce that they can fly through here with another 30 miles an hour of speed. And then with the hybrid power, they take off much faster. So going into the bus stop, again, if you can facilitate an LMDH getting by you, go ahead and do so. Because just like when you get around GT3s into the bus stop, you want to be able to go through. But, just like the GT3s, you don't have to just let the LMDHs by if you're fighting somebody and they're not going to get there in time. You have the right to the racing line, but again, just like the GT3s, you need to be predictable in your behavior and your body language within the car to communicate what's going on. And honestly, over a 24-hour period, you're going to kind of get an idea of those around you and how they're going to be driving and who's more high risk than others. And it may be worth even hopping on the radio at times to help facilitate either a pass or having an LMDH slow down a little bit to wait for you. But I would never bank on the LMDHs waiting for you, so you might have to just kind of take over that racing line. Or going into the bus stop, you might have to move slightly over to the left before that LMDH gets there to signal, hey, I'm going through here. So hopefully that's giving you an idea of some of the things to keep in mind with the LMP2. Again, the GT3s, while they're slower than you, do not have to give way. Just like you being slower than the LMDHs, you don't necessarily have to give way. But if we all work together and realize that giving up a half a second or so in a corner to survive it is going to get you through the 24-hour much easier than trying to force your car into every gap that you think is there. Alright, time to move on to the LMDH. Okay, welcome back everybody to the LMDH. This will be the top dog at this year's Daytona in terms of raw pace. And this is the car that everybody's probably gonna hate that's in a lower class that has to deal with them trying to pass. If you are an LMDH driver, again, just like the other two classes, there are a few things to keep in mind to help you survive the next 24 hours. Just like the LMP2s, you need to be patient. I'm approaching a GT3 to the bus stop, and I already can tell I'm not going to catch him before I make it through. So I slow down early so I can set up a much better exit versus shoving my car in there and having to slam the brakes, which will totally kill the exit out of the bus stop. I would rather take a so-so exit out of the bus stop versus completely having to slow down the GT3 pace to exit the bus stop. Choose your own adventure if you will, but again, if you want to survive 24 hours with no incidents, that's one of the things you have to do to get there. Another thing to keep in mind is when you're going through this infield, especially if you're behind an LMP2, they're nearly as fast in this section. Ideally, once the field spreads out, hopefully you are able to work together to get through. Hopefully, if you're in a battle, some folks will help facilitate you getting by, but they don't have to. The big opportunity for LMDHs to easily pass an LMP2 is here on the banking. The banking, you should be approximately 5 miles an hour faster And going here into the bus stop, you will be even more than that. But there's going to be times where you in an LMDH, you're going to have to slow down and you're going to have to wait. And that's okay. Again, it's easy to give up a half a second to survive a whole race without having to spend 10, 15, 20 minutes in the pits dealing with repairs because you forced the issue somewhere. Again, when you're going around GT3 cars just like the P2s, be patient and look for those opportunities. You can go around the outside places, you can go around the inside in places. You as an LMDH driver have significantly more grip, and it's up to you to pass safely. As time progresses, as the field spreads out, most of the GT3s are going to help facilitate that pass for you, but you still have to keep your head on a swivel, and you have to avoid putting your car in situations where you could get hit because they just don't see you. If you dive bomb, especially if you're in a line of cars and you try to follow somebody through a gap, the odds of you making contact with a car that didn't see you are extremely high. So keep that in mind. Just because your car can fit somewhere doesn't mean that the people you're going around see you coming. And that's how you have to approach this event. So hopefully these tips and tricks help you out a lot. Again, endurance racing is all about etiquette. It's about patience. It's recognizing that the slower classes of cars own the racing line. It's up to the faster classes of cars to get around safely. And if you use good judgment, and if you're nice and patient, any positions or time that you lose getting through traffic will be regained by people not following these common sense rules to get through their race. So my name is Morgan. I really appreciate you joining for this etiquette video. Hopefully it helps you get through the 24, and I hope to see you out there. Cheers.